I came home 10 years ago from my last jail sentence for bank robbery. I'd been locked up for 18 to 20 years. I got sick of being in a space. When you're in prison, you appreciate 1 second of freedom. When you walk out of that gate, you can't replicate that. And never lived up to was who I truly was. And when I did that, I was at this point where elements of my life all came into that one spot. If you can be grateful for the land, the water, the sun, and so forth, then you get into a position where everything else is abundant. The life you want is on the other side of what you don't want to do. I want you and everyone that watches this to go in and action their dreams, their passion, their aspirations, so that A to B of life starts now and not at 75. If someone can guide you into a space around your business or life that helps you elevate into a different position or life, get out and share that shit to the world, because that's magical. In Aboriginal language, we didn't have a word for thank you. We're in our way because we just shared. You sat beside me and we were all one unit. You've got to open yourself up and allow yourself to be the gatekeepers of this knowledge. This is your vision here, but what you're accepting is here. So I'm not judging you on that. You got to judge yourself on that. I call it bubblegum society. If you're committed to the best way of your life and the passion of your life, you'll live a good life.
It's interesting that when I looked in the back end of our YouTube channel and it says 95% of you that watch it frequently haven't yet hit the subscribe button. So I have a small favor to ask. If you've ever watched this channel and enjoyed the content, please, can I ask you a small favor? Please hit the subscribe button. It honestly helps this channel more than I can explain. And I promise you, if you do that, I will return the favor. We will make this show better and better. That's a promise that I'm willing to make if you press the subscribe button. Do we have a deal? Jeff Morgan, welcome to the Betar Project podcast, and I'm excited to have you here today, man. Welcome.
Mate, thanks for having me, and I'm excited to share knowledge in a space, and I appreciate your time.
I've seen you speak into conversations of convenience. Now, podcasting is not a conversation of convenience for me. It's a deeper thing. It's, for me, I see you as an interesting person, and I'm interested in you, and for us, that allows us to go deeper and build a deeper connection. And man, that's why I love podcasting. You're jumping into podcasting soon yourself. I see this conversation of convenience as an issue in society. For example, you walk down the street and you go, hey, how's it going? Yeah, good, living the dream. It's like automated responses.
Absolutely.
Jeff, I want to ask you genuinely, how are you today? And when was the last time you actually got asked that?
It's probably been a long time, to be honest. How are you today? And my automated response used to be, yeah, good, yeah. And you just rip out what you would do. But in this time, through intentional living, my life is bliss. And I truly mean that from the bottom of all elements of my life. I went out and started to add layers to the foundations that were already there and learn about myself, learn about what I wanted out of life, who I was, what direction I wanted to get towards, my A to B of life, when you're born, when you die, and what I wanted to happen in between, whether that was to countries I wanted to travel. I just come back from the pyramids. As an example, we did a 9-week holiday. How many people can go out and honestly do that without losing their job or without putting financial stress on yourself? And it's not a big head thing. It's more the intentional living thing. How could I get to that position where that was doable and enjoyable? And I created the life that I did for myself, by myself. And that hopefully gives help, or hope, I should say, to others, that if Jeff can do it after 20 years of jail, how can I do that as well? And I think that's something that people can take away and start to think. We live in a different way of life in this current climate of technology, and things can happen really quickly when you commit to yourself and the A to B of your life.
Yeah, we're all dealt a deck of cards. It's what we do with them.
On that really quickly, I want to ask you, right?
Yep.
What's the way of life? In general, when we're born, what is the vision that we're sort of then instilled with? As you said, conversation of convenience. This one becomes a conversation of convenience to ourselves as to how we're built. Go through school, get a job after school, maybe a part-time job, going into uni, and then you go into the workforce around what your specialty is. some people come out of their first part of high school, year 10, they go into a trade maybe with their parents or something of that nature, people they know, and they go down that path. And now we buy a house, get married, have the kids, right?
Yep.
That's sort of like the scope of life. But what if we flipped that whole thing and said, whilst I'm in school, I'm going to create a business, whether it's online, and people always laugh. I'll give you the greatest example. People laugh at TikTokers. Man, some of those, I know a TikToker that personally, I know a few of them, that make huge money each week doing what they're good at. Like, say, if there's a comedian, we'll all go and pay to see the comedian, right? These people are entertainers and they make great money. Good on them. They found a scope, and people say that's not a real job. Well, they're getting on every single night and that's their work. They go to work, they show up and be the version that entertains people and allows them to feel part of, some form of community. And that's the biggest thing. If we can get out of this thing of what life technically is fed to us, and it becomes a conversation of convenience. So I'm going to go to school, get a job, get married, have kids, buy a house, pay that off, retire. And, I looked at retirement and said, I don't want to be 75 or whatever age that is as retirement and have my money to go and travel the world. I had a story that I'll share with everybody, and I think it's very relevant. This family gave me permission to do so. Mother, father worked hard, old school generation. They go into retire, travel around Australia, travel around the world. They get to near the end of time where they're about to retire. Husband gets terminal cancer. All the money they'd saved was pointless. And this is, a lesson that should become a blessing for everybody listening to this. Why couldn't you retire now? Like, why can't you build something so beyond your scope or the conversational convenience that allows you to live in the now, which lets you live and travel for 9 weeks overseas? And I don't have to worry financially. I don't have to worry about my boss. I am my boss. I structure my life my way. And that's, that's something that if I can do it, everybody can do it. Just find your passion. You've shown on this podcast, mate, for those that can't see this is a well-built room with some passion behind it. And if you've got passion behind what you do, people will see that and they'll eventually come into the conversation and it'll create a life you never thought possible.
It's interesting you bring that up. I had another guest that said very similar things, and I put that on social media. And the amount of negative feedback it got from it, because people are so closed-minded and they pigeonhole themselves to what society tells them how they have to live. So then when they're confronted with this other life that they could have created for themselves, it brings up all the insecurities. Absolutely. And they actually have to look themselves in the mirror and go, oh, fuck, what am I doing with my life? There's so many people working 9-to-5 jobs that they hate.
Man, I know people that drove. Long story short, I came out here when I first come home many years ago to Fit and Fast. There was a gym out here, and a friend of mine got me out here. And I'd talk to people that would drive to the city, and they say, oh, I've got to do this damn drive to the city. And I'd be like, so do you enjoy that? And they like, no. And I was like, but I have to pay my bills, was the conversation. You can pay your bills with the skills that you have acquired or put yourself into. The education and knowledge you acquire towards a space or a specialty that you're great at. As I said, TikTokers, right? YouTube, right? Shout out to Spanian, right? Spanian, to me, has gone out and just done what he feels he loves doing. Hasn't said, I'm going to do this and make money out of it. Here's what I love doing. I'll show up every single day. I was watching his Santorini video. Oh, cuz, look at this, because he just loves it.
It's been his authentic self.
And people get at him, and they still get at him. And I have seen a transition. Get a real job, this, that, and the other. What if I told you, or you can look it up yourself, look at Mr. Beast on YouTube, or Logan, the Paul brothers, right? They've made millions of dollars from YouTube because they just went down a path of, Mr. Beast with his cars and so forth, Spanian with his foods and his hood talk now as an example. And who knows what path it leads you to. And if, as he said, he goes, mate, he's blessed in this last video. If he's making $15K a month doing that as an example, and you can work it out by the views, how much they sort of might be making at this point of time, what happens in 10 years' time when that following becomes bigger and bigger? I remember when he had minimal followers And then I looked the other night, he had 300 and something thousand subscribers, right? When that becomes 3 million, becomes 30 million, becomes the same with your views, and now he's making 150K a month. Who wants to get at him now about the life that he's living? And that's, that's proof that if you follow your passion, what you love doing, you'll do it. And it doesn't have to be about money. It could be about inner peace. It could be about helping other people. You see a lot of corporates drop back and go into mental health or working with kids or something of that nature. And they're more fulfilled than they've ever been before in their life. Find your passion, live that every day, and you'll live the greatest form of A to B you'll ever live within your life. For you, by you, designed by you, and I think that's the greatest life one could ever live.
That's it. It's just like this podcast. I didn't start it to make money.
Beautiful.
I started it out of a passion. It kind of stemmed from my insecurities of not being able to communicate with people. And I was like, I'm going to throw myself in the deep end. I'm going to learn how to communicate. And it's just grown from then, understanding that one of my biggest values in life is connection and personal development and growth. This is what this whole podcast is about. I want to not only help other men become better men, but that stems from me becoming the better version of myself, that I can pass that knowledge down, and you can jump on and pass your knowledge down as well.
Absolutely.
It starts from a passion. I don't care about the money. I'm just in here to play the long game, because if I play the long game, I'm going to win at the end of the day.
A lot of people won't play that long game because they need to be paid now. I understand that, right? Saying quit your job and have nothing in front of yourself, that's unrealistic. But have a exit plan. And that means that even if you're doing one podcast a week, as an example, on the Saturdays, and you dedicate some money, you invest money as you have in this studio, and you get to a point where, you might have 50 subscribers now. And that, once again, fast forward, I look at your page in a year wow, you've got 5,000. And then because of the people, the attraction, law of attraction to that podcast, now different people coming into the podcast, and I look a year later and go, what? He's got 500,000. How did he get that? That's how we perceive things. Why did he get that? Well, I don't know that wasn't that great a podcast or so. That's the perception of you all. But what we didn't see was the growth in between, and what you learn, how to communicate effectively, how to set the podcast up, how to reach out to people who actually had some form of following, influence on other people, that then brought more people into your podcast. And Joe Rogan, greatest example of that, many years ago, would have started out in a position and has had, people of the highest level, and then that has the hugest following now. And that's huge for anybody out there. Follow your dreams, follow your passion, do it every day, be committed, totally committed to the process. And that means that you're going to get slack and say, what are you doing, bro? You're just a bloke from Penrith who can't do anything, or something of that nature. My biggest thing to every single person out there is, doesn't matter where you are in this world, if you got passion towards what you do, people will recognize it, and the value that goes out to the world will come back tenfold.
Exactly. And I love that you pointed out, don't quit your job straight away and dive into it, because for me, I'm still working a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And at this stage, I've gotten to a point, because I rent this studio out as well for other podcasters. So that's a side business, which has allowed me to drop Fridays from my 9 to 5.
Bingo.
Friday's my podcast day. And then special occasions like this where we do a Sunday morning. But just by putting in the work and also flipping my mindset, I used to hate my 9 to 5. Yep. And a lot of people do. But when I realized it's more than just paying bills, it's, for me, being able to provide for my family, provide for my daughter, put food on the table, house over head, like flipping your mindset from, I've got to go to work today. It's, no, I get to provide for my bloody family.
Love that.
And when you have that mindset, you're more positive, you're more open. So then when you go into your business or your podcast, you're going to be more positive there, and you can grow that quicker, which then will allow you to drop off from your 9 to 5 quicker as well.
Absolutely.
It's all mindset.
Attitude towards what current space of that A to B you're up to. And we all do have to start somewhere. So, as I said before, don't quit your job and just go and build this studio and hope that tomorrow everyone comes and talks on it and you got 10 million followers the next day. It's not going to happen. That's not the reality. The long game you spoke about. I got to my position. I came home 10 years ago from my last jail sentence, 7 years down in Melbourne for bank robbery. And I was committed to the journey of my life. Fast forward 13 years, going on 14 years home now. And people say, Morg, you're so lucky. You're blessed. Everything. They don't see the Sundays that I sit and I do the groundwork for myself and the framework to the roadmap of my A to B of life. And when you understand that, I spent that amount of time, and I probably spent less realistically the last couple of years when that happened. I went into the mental health and wellbeing side, and our business went like this, tenfold, right? 100-fold. And it created a lifestyle that I wanted to live. I'd been locked up for 18 to 20 years. I got sick of being in a space. I wanted to make sure my office was out and about. And, I've created that in a short period of time, 2 years, realistically. We went to a whole new level of life. And it was the belief behind the passion of what you do and who you are that then I don't have to tell people who I am. They will understand, and people have that, they'll spruik that, hey, just your person. And once they understand that conversation, they'll invest in that person, and the same principle around your podcast or whatever it is you do in life. And people got to understand this too. People will accept that life and say, I only earn X amount of dollars, so I can't go overseas for 9 weeks. If you tell yourself that, that's what you'll believe. That means that your A to B of life, you'll never do a 9-week holiday. That's the reality of it, right? When we say, what could I do to add extra income to my space? You've done that. You've dropped off the Friday. This starts to generate some sort of traction. 5 years from now you're making, even if it's 10 grand a month, 2.5 grand a week from your podcast, just by talking to people in your home. Now you've made more time for your family, which you told me was important to yourself. And all of a sudden, you're loving life. You get here and conversate with people, and you'll find that layers upon layers. Hey, Jeff comes in, maybe Spanish, whoever it is, right? And then someone says, oh, they've been on that podcast, I'll go on as well. And all of a sudden, your podcast is generating not 10 grand, 100 grand a month. And people go, oh, I'll get a real job. That's what you get, because in the end, that's the conversation. The real job for anybody out there, and this is my version of that, is your passion about what you love doing. You're not going to play, if you're an athlete and you want to play NRL and I say, let's go and talk makeup on camera, you're just not going to do it. I'll pay you. All right, I'll talk about it, right? People do that because they're getting paid and I pay my bills and I'm too busy to pursue the other stuff. Dedicate some time within your schedule to prioritize the life you want. And that means even if it's half an hour, to build this, to get to a position where you drop off your Fridays and all of a sudden Thursdays disappear as well, because you're generating enough money to not only equal what you're making, but now with the 3 days you're working, plus this, you're making 3 times the amount you're normally making. And then you say, that following becomes bigger and bigger. And now you drop off another day because you're 4 times, 5 times what you used to make in a job from 9 to 5, but you're only working, let's say on a Friday, you do all Friday. The rest of the week is you and your family. How good is that?
And the thing is, I work harder Friday to Sunday and I'm way more fulfilled.
Absolutely, yeah. And because you're doing what you love.
Yeah.
You're not, man, I've been on the traffic on the M4 going into the city from here, Penrith, and I know that for those that, watch this from anywhere in the world, that is a huge journey. You get to the Blacktown section of this, or section of that highway, and it just becomes bumper to bumper all the way in, then the Parramatta section, then into the city. And, to do that every single day towards a job that you hate doing is just crazy. I have to pay my bills. I don't have time. And they don't have time for the business, which means they don't have time for their health. And mental health takes a hit. They feel like shit. But what ends up happening, you become good at managing that. So therefore, that's what you accept. And what you accept, you regret. You get to the end of your life and you'll be that family that says, far out, I wish I'd done it differently.
Accepting average.
Absolutely. And I don't mean that in a negative way towards people saying you're average. What I mean is that you want this. This is your vision here, but what you're accepting is here. So I'm not judging you on that. You got to judge yourself on that. So here's what I want. Here's what I'm accepting. How can I step up to that? And even if it's 1 minute, 1 hour, one choice, one moment, one thing within your life that you decide to do that brings you closer towards your ideal dream, goal, aspiration within life of your A to B, and watch how life pans out. 9-week holiday. I was loving it. And, people are, it's funny, right? Going back to that whole conversation of convenience, did you win lotto? What's your boss going to say on this? How could you afford this? Because the perception is, as human beings, we can't do a 9-week holiday. Well, in this day and age, yes, you can. And, it was one thing I used to sit in my cell and go, how do other people own these cars? How do they own these huge homes? How do they live these luxurious lifestyles? And I realized the life you want is on the other side of what you don't want to do. And that means that we think it, but we just we've never been there before. Maybe our family's never been there before. For people like myself, maybe even yourself. So to go here, it's impossible. So we've got to do shit that no one else has ever done. And we've got to be that circuit breaker within our family that shows our family, actually, here's a different way of thinking. And here's a different, as human beings, different way of thinking that leads us to a different way of life. And until we become that beacon of hope for those underneath us coming behind us, I suppose, that allows them to get to that position. We aren't in the proximity of millionaires to make us millionaires. We aren't in the proximity of athletes to make us athletes. So we've got to do shit that we haven't done. And technology allows us access to these millionaires, billionaires, athletes, their training programs, what to do, how to do it. And all we have to do is show up to it. On the other side of that is some hard work for yourself. We'll show up harder for a business and organisation than we will for ourselves.
Sad, eh?
We'll charge our phones more than we charge ourselves. Let that sink in. Every single night, relentlessly, where's my charger? I need to charge my phone. How about you charge yourself as passionately as you plug that charger in every night? Watch what happens in your life. I guarantee by charging yourself, you're charging yourself towards the elements of the emotions and feelings you want out of life. What do you want out of life? What are the happiness, fulfillment, contentment? All right, so what's that look like? When I ask that question, this is what people do. And I don't mean it in a nasty way. It's because we just don't consciously think about it. And then what intentions do you have towards it when you don't think about it? You'll think it, 70 years of age, oh, mate, I'm going to retire now and travel the world all wrinkly. Would you like to travel the world where you can jump in a bikini or, take your shirt off and feel great about your body, and you have the energy and zest to do it? Or do you want to limp around with literally going, wait, I can't breathe properly? That isn't my form of retirement. I just went, I'm not going to accept that. I'm going to do it now. And before people get at me, I think it's important to understand, if I had this knowledge earlier, I'd share it to the world, even if I was 18, because I want you and everyone that watches this to go in and action their dreams, their passion, their aspirations, so their A to B of life starts now and not at 75.
There's so much knowledge out there.
It's the dedication of time you put to the
time, but also backing that up with action. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you're not putting it into action and going out there and doing the work, you're not going to achieve anything.
We do workshops, right?
Yep.
With everyone, corporates, Defence Force, athletes, mothers, fathers, kids. And what will happen, right? When we start talking, we tell them about the ego. Our ego will do this. They'll sit there like this and they'll listen. And they're like, I'm protecting myself from you, right? And I'm like, man, if you sat there and said, what can I do? And then we'll say, who wants the journals and who doesn't want the journals? Which give you a roadmap framework to the life and structure that you tell me you want. We'll give you the discipline and accountability so you don't talk shit to yourself like most people do. We then build that into people, but what you'll find in these workshops, people won't write out. They're like, no, I'm not going to do that. And they'll close themselves off from their own greatest life. Designed by them. I'm just helping you be a bit of guidance on that journey. And people do, they just block it out. They say, no, I'm okay. And then the people would sit there and they'd say, I'm stressed out. My mental health's no good. And I'm just giving you or help guide you towards the key to your happiness, fulfillment, contentment, and I'll create discipline and structure that keeps you accountable through that A to B of life so that your greatest version of life will happen, and people will block that out because our ego will say, oh, who's he to tell me how to live? Yeah. I'm not even telling you how to live. I'm just showing you that there's a way that you can action your passion of the life you truly want, not me. And people just block it out, as I said. And you've got to open yourself up and allow yourself to be the gatekeepers of this knowledge. Leave those gates open, and what is the benefit and value of every conversation? And I don't mean that in a sense where I'm going to use you to get to a position, but more so, what is the benefit and value of this conversation that could add a layer to the foundation of my house of success? And once you do that, you're moving towards the penthouse of the life that you want. And as I said, it doesn't have to be financial. Some people are just about smelling the flowers and seeing the sun come up. But if you're not going to watch the sun come up every day and smelling the flowers as at every opportunity you can and putting that into your structure of life, then you're letting yourself down, remember, and operating at an average level of what you told me your life wanted to be. And that's what most people accept. I've come to realize.
I believe when it comes to creating any sort of success, the foundation is always your own health and well-being. And you mentioned they're charging your own batteries. How do you charge your batteries?
In so many ways, like there's so many elements of life that I appreciate. Getting down to a beach, for an example, or place that helps you feel a specific way. You ever been in an environment and someone makes you feel stressed out, anxious, or whatever it is, versus an environment that makes you feel awesome? You come back, maybe it was the beach, the sun was out, you're with your family or friends or boys, girls, whatever it is, music's playing, the music that you loved. I come along and I change the music to something that you hate. It changes the whole dynamic of that situation. And I think that's, for me, I'm conscious around every environment. What makes me feel a specific way? So I'll put, visits to the beach, visits to the bush into my weekly as an example. Visits to the gym, visits to flexibility, visits to good sleep. What's good sleep look like? Do people know? Do they practice? I'll push it. Your cortisol levels go out of whack. All of a sudden, that stress within your body, inflammation. If you don't fit into your clothing, how good do you feel? I know as a female, talking to females, I know how much that has an impact on them mentally, and the clothes that they wear to hide the inflammation and how they feel about themselves. So if we're not consciously trying to fix that, we're going to feel the way that we don't want to, but then we just accept it and we regret it. And people will roll through life. They'll do that because they get good at this. What I'll do is I'll go through this cycle. That stressed me out. Now I'll do something. Sometimes I'll eat donuts as an example. I'm going to eat something that's going to even put more weight on myself. I feel good now. Small little dopamine hit. They go through this cycle, put some music on, I feel a bit better now, and go back to round 2.
Yeah, created those coping mechanisms.
As Groundhog Day goes like this, right? And all of a sudden you're blown out like this, and you can't even look at yourself in the mirror. No, I don't want to come out. I'm busy. They're not busy with anything. People tell me they lock themselves in their rooms because they don't want to be out in summer because their body's not where they want it to be. Prep yourself for life every day of your life around the life you truly want, and guess what will happen? I promise you on the other side of that, those actions, they'll create the reactions that you as an individual want to your life. And as I said, the life you want is on the other side of the shit you don't want to be doing.
I'm interested in the pivotal moment in your life where you more than likely would have been in a dark place, locked up in prison, and the environment's dark, dark space in your head. What's that shift in your mind where you're like, okay, I can either continue living in this darkness, continue going down this path and maybe dying in this area, or making a change in my life for the better to become the best version of me?
Yeah, to me, it was probably crying in the back of a prison truck going back to Port Phillip prison in Melbourne. We'd robbed the bank in Melbourne. We were arrested. I then went to trial. I had an opportunity to possibly beat that. I had a crew that I was with for a long time. I went back to them and said, hey, can you come to court? A couple of them said they need to ask their solicitors. We'd been a crew for a very long time, and I still value them as friends in a sense. And I'll tell you the context to that story in a second about them. I then realised, who I thought had my back didn't really have my back. That was the reality, and that's the truth of that conversation, and that does pain me because we were good friends, but at the same time, it was a flip on my life. I'd been found guilty in this trial. I was coming back to Port Phillip in the back of that truck, and I just started crying. And I think I got sick of the shit I spoke to myself. As human beings, we lie to ourselves every single day. I'm good. Conversation. How you traveling? Yeah, good, brother. And then go out and have a cry and look at my bank account. It's in minus. Don't know how I'm going to get food. I've got kids that I brought into it. I don't even know about leadership. And I'm just, the kid, what do you reckon the kids are going to take? The same toxic behaviors I had. And, sitting in that truck, I had that realization that I'm going to die here. And is that what you want? Or do you want to do something different? And if you want to do something different, they'd found a mobile phone in my cell, so the boys had used the phone, pulled it out during the day, and sure enough, it got found. That was in my cell, even though I wasn't in my cell during the day. It was a double cell, so you could have access to it. And I went into segregation. So it was that pivotal moment that put me in segregation, and I sat with those for 3 months during that, nothing but a cell. And by the time I walked out of that cell, I had sort of some huge intentions. And I walk out, the first person I see says, "You want to do a university degree?" I was like, "What, here?" He's like, "Yeah, right here." I said, "Give us a look at the list." And I think it was just that manifestation of those 3 months. Here's what I want to do. Here's what I need to do to change the accepted version of myself, what we're spoken about. And I was making huge money. Spanian described me as Hood Superstar in his podcast because I was making huge money in the wrong space. And I sat there and said, if you can make it in that space destructively, why can't you do it constructively in this world? What's the difference? You still got the high performance habits and rituals. You still got I had no fear jumping over a bank counter. So why have I, or will I have fear creating a business? Yeah, you don't know about it, but you know what? Just jump that counter just like you used to. Step straight into that. And that's where that transition started to happen. In 3 months, the only thing I had was pen and paper. And I wrote out, when I looked at it, it was ugly. It was the version that...
What was on that paper?
Yeah, like you lie, you deceive, you steal, you cheat. Man, I was toxic as... I'd high-five you from the amount of girls. I was a womanizer. I was like all of it, right? Who wants to write that on the paper? Who wants to write the truest version of that? Who can do that? Right? Because until you do that, you're going to accept that. And that's what happened. I said, I'm sick of the shit I talk to myself. And people saw me as a good person. If people spoke about Jeff Morgan, they could superstar or it is a good person. Underlying, I had so much shit. I made on stuff with friends, partners, stuff of that nature, right? And it was all toxic. You want stress in your life? You want that trauma? You want people around like me in your circle? There's no way I'd want that person in my circle, right? And when I looked at it, I was like, far out, I sat there and said, it's so ugly. Do you want this? Like I was looking around, is this what you want for your life? You're going to die in here. Because I was getting to an age where, I was thinking I'm going to get probably 10 years out of the sentence. I was lucky to get 7 years. But I think the judge, I've rephrased that. I know the judge said, you've got hope and you've got something in you. And it just flipped me. I just went down this path the whole time I studied in there, and I started to accept, and this is what we struggle as humans to do, write out that version of ourselves, and then all the stuff that's in your invisible backpack, we all carry one, and all this shit was in it that was so heavy. I had it in front of me and said, well, what's the best version of that? Who's good at business? I don't know about that, right? Who can I look at? Tony Robbins in Australia, Mark Burris, straight talker, and at the show, I'd watch the show and he'd be like, you're bullshitting yourself, mate. And it really resonated with me. And when I got down and dirty with myself, I started to say, all right, so what do you want out of business, life, relationships, happiness, inner peace? What's it all look like? And I started to create this version of myself that was the greatest version of myself in my eyes. And there was so much space in between them, and in between, imposter syndrome. You can't do that. You don't deserve that. Wake up to yourself. All those thoughts that everyone has. And I just started to tick off boxes one layer at a time. And, fast forward 13 years later, we're in a great position now. And my values, morals, and beliefs are two totally different people. That ugly bird, I can't even picture Jar anymore. And is that thought process, but I also think, how could I help people in that same position? Because we're just a version of those that are in our proximity. And take you back to the context of those boys, they kept going and they reached out to me, and I said, mate, if you're going to have any conversation or anything, I don't want to know about it. And I'm happy to catch up for feed. We've grown up together. They kicked on and they're serving 19 years with 14 years on the bottom for bank robberies and armor guards. So, choices in life around conscious thinking led me to a different path at that point in time, where I cried in the back of that truck on the way back to Port Phillip. And you got to put yourself through that heartache, pain, suffering, but I'd rather do it for a year than serve 14 years of pain, heartache and suffering and lose all of that life. And that's what most people accept within life. I've realised by dealing with 800,000, I think we're over 800,000 now through the last 4 years, or going on 5 years now. And what I found with those participants was that we accept the life that we get. We're born, go to school, get a job, pay off your house, retire at 75 or whatever it is.
It's bullshit.
And there's so much more out there. And I don't mean to judge anybody. If that version makes you happy and you accept that, but if I said to you, would you travel more? And even asking you, would you travel more if you had the opportunity to do so with your family? Well, then my thing to that person is, what could you do so your whole family could be paid for to travel, not just in economy, but in business class, right? Because if you don't think that, you won't act or operate like that.
And as soon as you ask those questions, then it actually gets you thinking. As soon as you say no, it closes the loop in your brain.
You'll say, oh, I don't know, right? Most people will, and it's not a knock. I was that person. So understand that all the context to this conversation is of what I accepted. And I accepted jail. I'd do it standing on my head. Do I want to be in jail? No way. Give me the key and walk out after the first day of your 7-year sentence being handed down. Do you want the key? 100% I want the key. So now I started to have those conversations. So stop talking shit to yourself about you standing on your head. You can do it, but do you want to be doing that? Do you want to drive to Penrith every day from the city, which for people overseas that watch this, that's an hour drive, and in peak hour traffic, maybe an hour and a half that way, hour and a half back this way, 3 hours every day, times 5, 15 hours a week that you could dedicate towards a business. If you worked in the local business, save the travel time, say 5 minutes, you might not make as money as you do in there, but you dedicate those 15 hours towards your podcast, your business, your passion. Watch what will happen. And let someone like Spanian be that example. Have a look at how far he's come in a short period of time by just following his passion. It's in your faces. For me, 2 years, man, and we went from here to here in a short period of time, because the passion has layers from the PT, the nutritionist, qualified nutritionist, healthy lifestyle habits and rituals, high performance habits and rituals, resilience, leadership. And it just kept going and going and going. And over time, people come into your circle that you never thought possible. Business people, business opportunity. Hey, Jeff, we're thinking about, here's an opportunity to invest X amount of dollars. There's no way the kid on the streets would have got that opportunity. And it's because of proximity to my passion that led me and other people to see that and say, I want to be aligned with that person. And off you go. So you control your own journey. Make sure that you don't accept what you regret.
People underestimate how much you can achieve in such a short amount of time as well.
Do that for 1 year, right? I did this to myself 6 months ago, I think, or something of that nature. I've got the exact date at home. And in that 6 months, we went from a smaller business into a really large-scale business because of the commitment to knowing what my intentions were. What actions do I need to take behind it? So you spoke about self-care. If I wasn't doing that, and now I'm saying I'm going to help you become a high-performance individual in any space or environment you step into, and you say, what's that look like? And we go, I think it would be, you don't have confidence and nor do you trust me at that point in time. And you're like, I've been to quit smoking things as a health ambassador, and they go out with the people and have a smoke at morning tea. I just said, or we go to a health, conference, they're serving up, I understand balance too, right? But when you're serving up meat pies and all of that at a health conference, it's just, to me,
there's no trust there.
Yeah, I lose respect or trust towards that individual. It's about having conversations, not of convenience, of absolute foundations. And that means that the foods that are there, the way you talk to yourself, the way you act, the way you behave to a situation, that allows you to be a different individual and being. And yeah, you'll get knocked on that journey because you don't fit in to the rest of the world. And I've seen it over and over in the media. If you don't fit into this model, go to work and do X, Y, and Z. You're not a hardworking. TikTokers work their ass off every single night. And I wish them all the very best, or anybody, even YouTubers, right? I wish them all the best. Influencers that are getting paid doing what they do. They live a particular lifestyle. They share it to the world. They make people live longer and stronger for themselves, improve people's mental health, less stress within your life, more happiness and people get at them. Oh, the influence, look at this person walking down, strapping on a pier. I hope that they influence as many people as they can in a positive way, to be body positive as well. So you're not restricting yourself for food. You're not, doing something that's going to damage people in a health sense. But if they're doing something that lifts people up, let's all lift each other up. Imagine that. Imagine just all boosting each other up. You want to start a podcast? Here's what I did on my part. Here's the mics that I used here. Why? Because it's better sound, better quality camera or something of that nature. And we just don't do that in Australia. It's the fact that we've got a saying, tall poppy syndrome, that tells you what we're built as human beings. And why do we even have that saying? In Aboriginal language, we didn't have a conversation. We didn't have a word for thank you. Really? Why? Because we just shared. You sat beside me, and we were all one unit. And I think if we did that as Australians right now, be one unit, then I'm not going to share how you can better your podcast. I'm not going to share how to better your business. I'm not going to share how to better your health. I'm going to do it for me. Yeah, it's great to do it and influence people, but at the same time, if someone comes into the conversation, what is the benefit and value towards the other person? A longer and stronger life for you and your kids. Why wouldn't I share that? It's just crazy. That's how we operate. Tall poppy syndrome, shoot him down. Let's all jump on his thing. And the funniest thing about all of it, when you jump on and you troll people, I don't get enough trolls, so I need to get a bit more controversial maybe, but it actually elevates your business.
I've noticed that the last couple of months.
Man, so I don't know if I'll get out and start saying some crazy stuff, but I think, to me that is people, and then you got to master the emotional regulation. I've already done that, so you can say what you want about me. I have awareness of who I am, so what someone says about me is not my business.
See, I have empathy for all those people, because if they're taking the time of day to jump on a platform to talk what they're going to speak about and try and drag you down, they also have their own insecurities that are coming up.
Absolutely. Man, I got called Abo the other day, and for anyone that knows, for Aboriginal people, it's very derogative and offensive, but it's not my business. That person wants to be racist, and mind you, it was within my circle that I got it from, so it blew me away. But that's, in that one sense that it came from them, but I just went, it's not my business. And I now put a boundary up around it, and I wish you all the best in your life. It's up to you to educate yourself about, racism, I suppose, for that person, and how you treat other people. If we treat our other people, as my grandmother and mother said, love, kindness, empathy, and respect, the best race on this planet is the human race. When we all get on with one another, there's a little thing in the background candle there that's got healing on it, and we can do our own healing towards the A to B of our life. And instead of projecting shit out to the world, we're actually focusing on what we want from our world, and that's a totally different conversation.
Correct me if I'm wrong, in Indigenous culture there's not a word for suicide?
Same thing. Why, we didn't have words that didn't or weren't inclusive of us walking side by side, hand in hand, to thrive as a community. That's it. So it wasn't like, you're a baby, you sit over there, and I shouldn't probably make that example, but it's, you're a female, you got no place in this tribe. mate, they were doing things, weaving baskets so they can carry food back from wherever we were hunting, or, down by the river, making sure that we had enough water, or whatever it may have been at that point of time in any way, shape or form. And people just don't understand that conversation because it's not your conversation. And when something's not your conversation, we'll just let it go by the wayside. But realistically, there's so many lessons that could become blessings from Aboriginal culture that we just ignore. And, to be able to survive for so long off the land, we are in touch with the land itself and the gratitude of life and what it presents to ourselves. So if you can be grateful for the land, the water, the sun, and so forth, then you get into a position where everything else is abundant. So if I got $1, I'm abundant. People might look at my life and go, oh, this bloke's living this particular life. I don't need nothing. I can live off the land and be grateful. And now if I get one piece of food, I'm grateful. $1, I'm grateful. One moment or experience because someone brought me into it, I'm grateful. And once you live at that level, now you become abundant. And once you're abundant, your mind shifts from why me rather than and then into for me. And that means that everything in this space is happening for me. Even if it's a problem in a perception, I'll look at the solution and the lesson that became a blessing, learn, grow and prosper from. And now I've turned an absolute negative into 3 positives. And when you do that and perceive it that way, now I just don't have time to sit and go, yesterday the referendum went on in Australia, or how shit's Australia and we're racist and all that. I won't look at that. What's the solution to that? What did I learn from that? How can I grow from it? And how can we prosper? And when I say not just me, everyone in the environment next to me, because if I just go about me, I'll never be happy. Why don't you like what I'm wearing? Why don't you like Aboriginal people? Why don't you like who I am? I just be me and the right person, and people will end up in the right environments, and we'll share knowledge to elevate each other to a position where we become, and billionaires, millionaires, or different lives. It's a small percentage of the population who do the shit that they don't want to be doing, but they know it's going to lead to the life they truly want.
How did you cultivate that mindset of appreciation and gratitude for the small things in life? Was that from your upbringing in your time in prison?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're in prison, you appreciate 1 second of freedom. When you walk out that gate, you can't replicate that. The freedom and far out. I've given another opportunity at life. And every day, 86,400 seconds of life, opportunity on opportunity, guess what we'll do? Whatever. I'll accept what the program is. Go through school, go through X. And I've seen, the last couple of years pushed a lot of people into a position where I'm not going to actually send my kids to school. I'm going to send them to a mentor or guide, or they're going to school them themselves. And I've seen families do it and people do it over time, where the kid, they're in school, but they'll pull them out of school at a particular time and they go out on the farm. Greatest example, right? I just want to be a farmer like my father. And they'll love their life, but they never went to school, but they're educated towards what they're passionate about. I say to people, and this is funny, schools like this, right? It'll teach you so many different elements of life. But if you don't have a passion, you're a man and say, let's talk about makeup right now. You're like, I wouldn't know anything about it, but I'm going to educate you. It's not right. I'm really passionate, but let's sit down. No wonder we've got so many kids in school that hate school, because we're learning things we just we're not interested in.
And they're labelled ADHD and all this stuff.
And then the labels go on. The labels that I could have taken away from the life that I had, I could have been PTSD, post-traumatic, clinical depression, violent, all of the above, right? Scumbag, piece of shit, whatever you want to call me, right? And if I took that, I would have believed it. And I did for a long time. So I went, stuff the public, we're going to go at them. Everly Street, Redfern, one of the most notorious streets ever. And I would have been up front all the time going, stuff the world because you judge me. And I lived up to their judgment of me. But what I never lived up to was who I truly was. And when I did that 3 months in segregation, I was at this point where elements of my life all came into that one spot. And I said, do you want to be Jeff Morgan, locked up, away from your kids? No father, you brought 2 kids into the world. And I still struggle with that relationship, man, like to this day. And I still struggle learning to be a father because I never put the time, energy and effort into that space. Business, life, or like there's so many elements and it can become overwhelming. If we did that from the start and said, who do you want to be? I want to have 2 kids. I want to travel the world. Or maybe your business then is about being a TikToker where you can travel the world and you can turn your TikTok on from Spain, wherever it may be, from a different country, where in Australia, and live the life that you truly want. Would you be happy in it? I fucking guarantee every single person would be loving their life because they're in the field of their passion. And as I said, you're not talking about MAC makeup and going, I'm getting paid, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, MAC makeup, here's the new blusher or whatever. I've got no idea about makeup.
You sound like you do.
Yeah, mate, I've got no idea. Be like, oh, you don't know what you're talking. And it's just, you're not passionate about it. Just find what you're passionate about. You're not going to read a book. You got a bunch of books there that you don't, it's not something of interest to yourself. You're not going to listen to music that you don't like. You're not going to put yourself into an environment. No, I like. But why do we put ourselves then into environments? Because I've got to pay the bills. Bullshit. You can pay your bills doing your passion and you'll find that you'll do it easier and better. And then how can you take that passion and make it something that will create a lifestyle for yourself? So maybe you can provide more value to that space and create a new business within the industry that allows you to live a different way of life. And that's what I did around what I do. And if I can do it, anyone can do it, man. It comes down to what you prioritize and how much bullshit you're willing to accept and tell yourself.
Have you thought about wanting to start a podcast, but you just didn't know where to start? The thought of buying all the equipment, setting it up, recording, and then having to edit it all became all too overwhelming and probably deterred you from even wanting to start. Well, what if I told you there was a one-stop shop for all your podcasting needs? All you had to do is come in, record, and everything was taken care of for you. Well, let me introduce you to the Betar Media Podcast Studio. High-quality audio, video, and lighting to allow you to get the most bang for your buck. That all sounds amazing, right? You could get your podcast up and running like tomorrow. So why don't you? So what are you waiting for? Let's take action on this thought. Let's make it a reality. Contact us today. I'm now offering a complimentary 30-minute session so you can come in and experience it for yourself. See you soon. I think it's important that we expose ourselves to all different elements of life, and then we can find our passion. Because we are so pigeonholed. As you said, society tells us to do this. I remember when I was finishing high school, it's like the next thing to do is go to university.
Absolutely.
And you just pick a random friggin' degree because maybe a family member told you. For me, I went the long way. I went to school, didn't get an A. I went to TAFE, and at the time I was playing rugby league and I had an injury. I was at my physio, and he's like, oh, why don't you go do sports and exercise science? That might be interesting. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll go do that then. Went to uni, didn't like it because I just thought that was what I had to do. Absolutely. And then I found my passion, never looked back.
Yeah, I wrote when I was in the young offenders that I wanted to do sports science degree. And when I looked into it, I actually was like, oh, well, that's the areas of work I'd go into then after that. And as I said, I went into work, not passion. And when you go into passion, you then do things without a thought.
You don't work a day in your life.
Man, you would show up and you'll see people who are passionate about things, with musicians, they lose their passion around singing because now they're being pushed into becoming, and you see it from the highest level, someone they're not. They have to be these people in interviews and they can't say things that they truly think, especially, let's say in America and they're of a different race and they want to talk about the racial issues within their community. They can't even talk about it and they're forced into a position. Now it's related to what their passion was and they lose the disinterest in that space. And that, there's been so many superstars people would think of that went down that path and they become different people. And they didn't want to be, but they accepted and they regretted. They can have millions of dollars, some of them, billions of dollars in that industry, but they're not happy. You go down a pub where you're actually doing something. I watch Gators. It's on Netflix. I very rarely watch anything, but I seen this thing, so I had it on and I just went, let's have a watch of this. And they got to a position, and they tell it in that story, where their passion for football started to lose. Even though they were undefeated, they were so driven by it that it became a stress rather than a happiness. And people can go and watch that. It was a great series because it shows you the emotion or change by changing who you are as a person. Rather than just playing football and showing up and doing what they love, they started to turn it into something that they hated. And by the end of that third season, I think towards their third win of the college football, they just hated their football. And people do that in life. They'll end up hating what they're doing because they've accepted and not become a voice within a space. And once you can do that, you're going to have to do something that someone else hasn't done. And that means that you end up creating a different environment where the passion stays the passion. And I think, Australia yesterday showed us that whole conversation. Greatest space behind you could have, greatest space behind any conversation you could ever have is one of passion and never misaligning or deep, pivoting out of it because, people have a judgment of you. Be proud and loud no matter who you are around your passion, and that'll shine through forever until that becomes a reality.
Yeah, stick to who you are.
Absolutely.
At one point in your life, you were playing pretty good like rugby league for South. I'm sure that would have been your passion at the time. What made you derive out of that?
I had habits and rituals that were destructive. So as much as my passion was there, I was built, and this is for everybody. We've got an intention, but we're not good at that intention, and we've got bad habits. And I always talk about the New Year's Eve, we're going to get fit and healthy. We've got great intention. By the first month, you've fallen over, and then you go back to the same routine and you do it next year again. That was what happened to me. So I was destructive, committing crimes, hating the community, hating the police. Everything was happening to me, not for me. And if I'd taken the other approach to that, I would have realised that I was in a great space around people that were doing great things, and I might have taken that football opportunity there at one point in time and just walked out of training. To maybe look back and, the rest is history. And I think that's one of the greatest things. Take that lesson for other people. When you get into a space, I felt like an imposter. People had played for Australia. Some of the tricky trindles there at the time, they'd been training playing first grade for a period of time. So I was just this young kid that was running out on the streets till 4, 6 o'clock in the morning, showing up training the next day. Stealing on one side and then showing up trying to be a different version. And I was like, these people aren't my people. And if we can challenge that, and that would be my lesson to everyone, challenge it. Say, I do deserve to be here. They see value in myself, and I just got to keep building myself up and adding these layers to the foundation of self, saying, hey, we'd love for you to play for the club. Now let's build some layers, get some strength, conditioning, your thoughts, your behaviours, your proximity. So if I, had someone in that space to mentor me and say, hey, Jeff, we know what you're going through. Tricky's going to be your mentor. And I hung around him and ate or something, and all of them would have probably done that if we had that combo. But as a young kid, I just didn't have the balls to do it. And I felt like I was not at their level of life. And this is what we do as humans. Whether it's in business, whether it's in sport, whether it's in relationships, this person's at this level, therefore I'm here. I can't have a say, nor will I open my mouth to have a conversation. I need the support, or I want more out of life. Can you show me a way? And if I'd done that at South, Alan Jones, there were so many good, Mike Whitney, all these people who were famous at the time, doing great things, values, morals, beliefs, habits. I would have discipline, accountability. I would have taken those and shifted my life at that point in time, but I just felt that I wasn't worthy. If someone puts you in a space, you're worthy. And most importantly, if you put yourself in that space, you're worthy. And don't judge yourself on other people is the lesson that I'd get from that. And I'd take into spaces now where we talk to billion-dollar organisations, we talk to sporting clubs, the NRL recently about something, and I just believe I'm worthy of that. I have the skills and knowledge, and once you build those foundations, I can have those conversations, not of convenience, but of passion. And the passion creates a reaction to the lifestyle you want from your A to B. So show up to that every single day and watch what happens.
Yeah, and it comes through putting in the reps as well. It's like you can't build confidence by yelling affirmations in the mirror. You've got to go out and take the action, and through that action you build confidence because you have all this evidence over here that you can actually do what you say that you want to do.
I can have a conversation around mental health or nutrition or high performance habits and rituals, and I could have them with the greatest athlete in this country and feel comfortable, or the greatest businessman ever that's graced Australia, and I'd be confident that I'm heading towards, and I'd say, hey, look, I don't know anything, but I'm trying to learn as much as I possibly can, and I'm going to show up to this conversation. And that's the biggest one you could ever have, because now you say, I am confident. I don't have all the knowledge. We'll never gain. Business, man, how much business? You could learn business upon business upon business. Sports or health, you could learn. As a nutritionist, I'm still looking at new foods every single day, or different reactions to foods or outcomes or so forth around foods and our hormones as an example. And it could go on and on forever. Be committed to the journey of who you truly want to be, and that passion will be behind those actions, and the intentional living will create the life you truly want.
You speak a lot into intentional living.
Huge. Because if you don't speak it, you ever seen a motor? There's a study, a motor, or even how they play music and how water forms or crystallizes, right? And you play heavy metal music, it's like this is like, or it just spikes out. Play some nice music and it crystallizes like almost a fairy tale Christmas falling down these snowflakes with the perfect crystals. And that tells us as human beings, 80% water, in and around that sort of number. What we tell ourselves we become. So I'm consciously feeding myself. Why would I feed myself shit food? Would you feed it? No one would, right? So why do you feed yourself shit thoughts, behaviors, beliefs? Flip all that, feed it into yourself, even if it's not a reality, and you'll start to act like that. And then you'll behave like that, which means I'm reading books, I'm studying, I'm learning. And then, as you said before, the confidence grows to a position where, the greatest businessman says, hey, Jeff, let's sit down and have a conversation. I'm not on the level of their knowledge, but what I am willing and committed to is gaining more knowledge from that person, from the benefit and value of that conversation to the A to B of my life. And as you can see, I keep feeding that to myself. And that's happened in front of people's eyes through my social media, and people said, Farah, your trip was unbelievable. How can you go on that trip? I've got a mentality, and I share this with the world. You can only spend 10% of what you have. And what that means is if you got 10% of $800, it's a small amount of money. But if I got 10% of a lot of money, then I can do a 9-week trip. To do that, I have to follow my passion and build the confidence in that space to create a life that I never thought my families have never got before or done before. But I'm going to leave that legacy behind to everyone in my space that it's possible, including yourself in this podcast, and anyone that watches this. Go out and crush life on your terms, for you, by you, and be intentional. Speak to yourself. Don't talk about, I hope I can do this. Don't talk about, I wish I could do that. I don't have those words other than in a podcast where I share that, because if I do that, I crush any commitment to myself. I start to knock down and say, oh, maybe I'm going to do this. Maybe is not 100% committed to this.
You're half-hearted in your head.
And whether it's an action, behavior, thought, belief, talk it into existence every single day, even if it's not a reality, so that you then operate from the level that it's already happened. And the manifestation that people say, oh, that's all bullshit. It happens. Oh, Mortgage, you're lucky. Bullshit. I'm manifesting that through my conversations, thoughts, behaviors, beliefs, to build trust into you to say, hey, just one person around leadership, around mental health, around well-being, or whatever it is that you want, high performance habits and rituals. And then organizations go, hey, Jeff, come in and look after us, organization for the next 3 or 5 years. Now I've got a different conversation. They're not going to give me that contract if I'm not doing the groundwork in the background in my own time. People get into cars and listen to music, and I respect that. But if I want to learn something around a space that I'm not good at, I'd rather listen to that first. And then I'm going to get to a position where I can listen to music. Why? Because now I've got solid foundations where people trust who I am and my conversations, and the amount of investment in myself allows me to live the life that I truly want. So when I'm cruising in a car that I want to be driving, could be a Mini, could be a Lamborghini. I'm listening to the music that I want through that intentional living, and it all started through the choices you're making when no one else is looking to the life you truly want.
Yeah, I think that's where people go wrong with manifesting. They feel you can just sit on the lounge, I want to be a millionaire, I want to be a millionaire, but you got to back it up with actual action. I think that's why manifesting's gotten a bad name to it and people don't believe in it. It's because they've gotten it all wrong.
Yeah. Imagine Ronaldo just saying, I'm going to be the best player this year and not doing any preseason. You got to do all the work, man. And that's, as I say many times, it's the work you don't want to do that leads to the life you truly want. And when you understand the context of that sentence, go back, replay it 10 times, and then define it your way, by you, and leave that action behind to create reaction in front. And, the future is in the past. You can talk as much shit as you want. I'm doing great. I'm in jail. I'm making great money. Well, shit, I was stressed out. I was a womanizer. I was a bad father. I was all of the above. And people can judge you and say, oh, this bloke's toxic as. That was chapter 5. I'm at chapter 55, and that version no longer exists. And what someone says about that version, I respect. They can talk about that version as someone who didn't show up to life. But chapter 55, here's who I am. And I'm not the perfect father now. I'm still working on it, but I'm committed to it. And that's where people beat themselves up and that manifestation falls over, because they go, oh, I'm manifesting being a better whatever it is, but I'm not that person, so I can't talk about it now. And I find that, especially in our communities where we've done something, you've committed crimes, you've smoked pot, you've hit a woman, you've done something toxic, therefore you can't have a voice. Now we've got someone who's isolated within the community, and what they'll do, proximity-wise, will bring the rest down with them. And until we say, how can I help you be a better individual? No matter how toxic they are, young kids stealing cars. 9 weeks later, this kid, 30, when a police officer dropped them off in the van, whole bunch of young kids, they said, good luck with those kids. One of those kids is suspects for 30 cars in this week, stolen cars. 9 weeks later, fast forward, they ring me up and say, hey, Jeff, we've got a problem with the program. And I was like, oh, yeah, did I do something? Did a kid die in a car chase? It's my thoughts, right? Because we're geared towards that space of thought. And I said, you've put everyone into jobs, you've got them all into after school care, and they're going to football training and so forth. No one's going to be at the program. And I said, well, I'll still come up there. It was in a country town, I won't name it. But at that point in time, we went around and just reinforced how well they'd done. 9 weeks of care once a week, all day. I went up there. So in 9 weeks, I turned around that kid that stole 30 cars to feel that they had value within their life. And they were following the passion of what they wanted to do. And they went into a workspace, and I said, do it for free if you have to. They did it for free, and the person said, you showed up every single day, I'll hire. And all of a sudden, this kid had a belief that he could do something different in his life. He became a circuit breaker in his family. And that's what we do as Australians. We shoot someone down and say, you're a piece of whatever. Well, then you obviously have the solution to that person's problem. Maybe that person hasn't grown up knowing what being a father looks like, knowing how to conduct themselves, not making excuses for them, but their parents, you go to their parents and they're smoking pot and getting locked up in jail. I was at front of Silverwater Jail. Context to this conversation, this mother says, come here, you little so-and-so, and swearing at the kid and all. And the kid goes, F you, your mother, F-A, and all these words, right, to the mother. And I'm like, how old is this kid? Probably 13 years from now, this kid's going to be behind these bars. Because proximity pushes you into a position. So if you want to judge somebody, you must have the solution. Here's a tip to every single person that watches this. Go out and sit with that person or family or whoever it may be, and without telling them, you need to change because you're no good. No one likes judgment. The ego will go up and block that information. Sit down with them and just become a friend. And by being a friend, those values, morals and beliefs, as an example, respect, conversations, will start to shift into that person without them realizing, and all of a sudden see a different outcome. And that's leadership, and that's how we can get on as human beings in a better place and space. And that's how and people go, oh, I'm not going to do that. Well, guess what? Someone's going to probably show up and steal your property or something of that nature, or do something maybe to your family where your family member isn't even on this planet anymore. That's the depth and context to that conversation. And you've got the solution to the problem, but you will sit in your ego and you sit in judgment and you isolate the other person within that community. We can, look, there's a threshold to that. Yeah, it's people doing things to kids that's just beyond help, but there's, most of these people that are in jails is the example, and they don't have to be in jail. You could be cheating on how many people. I know so many people, as soon as they get out and about, male and female, they'll cheat on their partner. They're going out for the boys' weekend, the girls' weekend, and the first thing they're doing is cheating. Are they any better than the person that's committing crimes to survive? But if we can sit in judgment, maybe their values, not maybe, their values, morals and beliefs aren't there. Why aren't they there? Why? And usually it comes back to the person. They don't feel worthy about themselves. So how can we put them in a position where they start to feel worthy? They have values, morals and beliefs, and a solid foundation of boundaries that doesn't allow them to step across the line of the partnership and commitment they made to the other person. And that was me as a kid. I just didn't have any. So I'd get a partner. This girl would text me, I'll text her back. And that's someone's daughter. Now that daughter's traumatized. Who knows many years later how much, not just myself, maybe other men have made that person feel, and they get to a position where suicide becomes a thought process. And that's how deep, as I see, this conversation goes. And I hope that people out there watching start to think, shit, you know what? I actually can be a part of the conversation. We all can. We're all part of this community in any country that you live in. Get out and have those conversations and get out of judgment, get into solutions, watch the outcomes.
Yeah, we all have a role to play. I was having this conversation on a previous podcast around homelessness, and homeless people are, kicked to the curb. Oh, you piece of shit! Like,
absolutely,
you're just. I'm not going to give you money because you're going to go do drugs and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, come back. Why are they taking drugs? Because they're trying to escape the reality that they're in right now. Absolutely. When people are walking past, spitting on them, kicking on them, not caring about them, of course you want to escape. And the thing is, most of society is escaping every single day. Our phone, Netflix. When you put it in that perspective,
in a different way,
what makes you different to them?
It's just emotional regulation in a different way. And some people are further forward than other people. Some on the street, some in a home. Some in a home still in the same position, same thought processes. And I'll give you it's great conversation, because what I just spoke about now has some foundations that I'm going to put on top of it. So homeless people, I used to always walk past and just give them money, right? I feel bad. Take money. I was on the streets myself. Here's $50. And I used to think, what do they spend it on? Well, they did that truly. It's going to teach them that if they sit on that corner, people are going to give them money and they can survive that way. And they'll keep doing it because that's their best version. What if I connected with the company, which is what I did? Where could I put them up? I found a capsule hotel down at Central. It was a minimal amount for a period of time. I said to the organisations, do you want more workers? Yeah, I do. What about committed, so labour, right? A lot around labour. What if I got committed people? You reckon if you gave a homeless person a job and said, here's $1,500 a week, all you need to do is show up, give it your best shot? And then we realised, and I'll give you the depth of this conversation. So I started talking to these construction companies, and they said, we'll put them up for 2 weeks. They show up for the 2 weeks, we'll put them on. We'll pay for their home package from some furniture sort of package. Say it was $4,000 or $2,000 or whatever it is, just to get them into a place. We'll pay for their bond. And now you reckon that person won't commit to that company? They will give their heart and soul to that company, right? And now we create a different human being. And that human being is someone's daughter, someone's son. And that means that we are truly taking a step that allows them to step away from those sorts of behaviours and beliefs of who they truly are into who they truly want to be. And when we do that, then I got to the point where I said, we realised that some of them struggled when they started working, but what they do is they put them into 5 days of work. They hadn't worked for the last 2 years, living on the streets. We're setting them up to fail. It's like saying coming to train with the professional team that's won the comp 3 years in a row, and you're going to play first grade next year. It's not going to happen, right? It might happen in the very rarest case, but in general, 99.9% of the population are going to fail. And we said, all right, what can we do? We'll give them work on the Monday and the Friday. And that way we split the time and we give them half a day. And then they'd say, no, I could do another one. add the Wednesday half day. Now I can do another one, add the Thursday half day. And we build them up over time. So they did a pre-season into a new way of life, and it let them settle in and start to get aware. They started to think about why they were on the streets, and we got that care for them around how they thought about themselves. I'm not worthy and all of the above. And that became a process. And now we're in a position where we learned from it all, but we didn't have judgment. We stepped into the conversation, supported, wraparound service, and we're going to help them out. And instead of dropping that $50 note on a thing, which was something I used to do when I was making money, I now have put myself in a position. If I can get you off the streets, would you be interested? Yeah. What if, would you be willing to work? Yes, I would. Bang, all right. Put them straight up in the capsule hotel. Your job starts Monday. Or if you got to be at this location, do you have a phone? And all of the above, right? And thinking about how we could do all of that. And people, as I said, become different human beings in this space of time, just through a little care, no judgment for fellow human beings, someone's daughter, someone's son, another human being. And it blows me away. People jump on and talk about all these wars that are going on. We've got a war here right on our step, homelessness, divide between races, struggle within the nation because of what's happened over the last few years. And our focus becomes, let's talk about the war. Let's talk about everything but ourselves and the bullshit we feed ourselves as a human being.
To distract us from what's really happening.
Both, man. And that's where I won. And that's where I left behind the old version of me. And the only one that goes back and visits that is those that want to talk about who I used to be. Well, good luck to you. I wish you all the best. You focus on the shit and I'll focus on the positivity. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but I just don't want to go back to that. I took the lessons that became blessings and used them as a strength. The future is in your past. And take that and do the same for yourself and watch what happens and come back and shoot me a message and let me know how good that was. That happens all the time, every single day. Because of you, I got off ice and I see my 2 kids. I'm becoming a better father. Because of you, I started a business. Because of you, I traveled to this. I've always wanted to go to this location. Because of you, I found peace. Because of you, just different things, and allow people to step into the greatest version of themselves, defined by them and actioned by them, just with me on the sideline cheering them on. Imagine if there was 100 of us cheering them on. What would happen? That's what we can do as a community across the world. The best race on this planet is a human race when we all get on with each other.
That's all we need sometimes, is just someone in our corner backing us, giving us the tools and the opportunities, because we're going to take it.
It doesn't take much either. If someone's got a business in your circle, you can hit share on social media. People are like, it's going to damage how my page looks. That's how deep this conversation is. I couldn't care less how it looks. If I can help somebody else create your podcast, someone's lawn mowing business, something of that nature, that, they're putting it out there. They're obviously wanting help and assistance. And maybe my sharing of that business helps them get 10 new lawn mowing contracts that helps their family travel, live a better life by hitting share for free. Cost me zero. Cost me 2 seconds of my time. It's not hard, man. So people tell me how hard it is to help other people. You can hit share on their business and it's free of charge. Priceless.
Helps more than you think.
Oh, man, just crazy how we think as a society. You don't have to give me $1 million to help me. You just hit share on my business and the right people. The funniest thing could be around mental health. It could be your daughter, your or any member of your family or extended family that gets the benefit of the business that I'm in to help them step out of suicidal thoughts. A better way of life, less stress, more happiness, more fulfillment. And people won't share because, I know, there's this weird twisted thing. I don't want that person to succeed more than me. Yeah.
But we'll go and share all the negative things. It makes no sense.
I call it bubblegum society. They'll keep the chewing gum in their mouth. They won't share it with other people. They just say, this is mine and it's going to be mine, and I'll keep those secrets right here in the darkness. And it's just, the mentality doesn't create no better reality in this world, I guarantee. And when you shift that and you share that, the greatest thing we survived off as Aboriginal people was the knowledge sharing to allow us to make sure that that was passed on from generation to generation, how to acquire foods, how to survive in the cold and all of the above. And that was through knowledge. That's for free. Time, energy and effort towards a space to share knowledge towards someone that I know will take the knowledge and make sure that it keeps and continues. Not just to be something of survival, but we'll add another layer. Now we know how to catch fish, rewire fish traps. They drove the fish into a space and they were able to get yabbies and fish and so forth and thrive for many, many years. And that's in the modern context, knowledge is power and there's so much information out there. If someone can guide you into a space around your business or life that helps you elevate into a different position or life, get out and share that shit to the world because that's magical.
You mentioned earlier in the podcast that we could learn a lot from Indigenous culture. Do you feel like as a society, though, speaking about Indigenous people specifically, because I had this conversation, do you know who Joe Williams is? Yeah, okay. So I've had him on the podcast and he's champion. He speaks about as an Indigenous person, you're walking in two lives. You're walking, you're naturally Indigenous and then the Western world that we live in now. Do you feel like the lack of connection to culture is what's impacting Indigenous people?
Absolutely. Same thing like as Aboriginal people. And I don't talk about Aboriginal people being the best. I'm talking about human beings not getting the best out of themselves. And you spoke about being average. Aboriginal people have done it for many years. I didn't know what my total was as a kid. And we didn't have the leaders from the trauma that was from the past because they were dealing with their own invisible backpack, the trauma, stress, heartache, pain. And what ends up happening is we don't have the leadership there to then thrive in a position. And once we understand, that whole conversation, we have to put on so many different faces to the world as Aboriginal people. And we didn't have the leaders to guide us into a better position, and it's something I've recognised. And it's not a knock on our people. It's just it's a recognition of where we are and where we could be. And I know that we're here and we could be here. And whether it's wealth creation, even for us, understanding the evolution of our country, we've got mobile phones that we talk on. As long as we don't lose our culture in that process, and we understand technology is a part of us, merge that in and be integrated where we are the greatest versions of ourselves, then it's going to be a great journey. But we don't have the leaders within our community, and the disconnect leads to a lack of belief. And I know within the community ourselves from the past, there is judgment. Whether you've been locked up, badge of honour to go to jail as a man, drugs or some form of thing to deal with the emotions. Now when I say something, you're just a druggo. You're just, who are you? You've been locked up all your life. Domestic violence. Who are you to speak up? You misses. I do a thing called drawing a line in the sand with our community. And I get every community I go out to do this. Take your feet off, connect to Mother Earth. That's how we recharge ourselves truly. And at that point of time, you step across and say, you know that I hit my missus, or you know that I commit crimes or smoke drugs, or I'm not the best version of myself, connected to who I truly am as an Aboriginal person. And you can say, I'm going to step across the line. I'm going to start to learn to be better in any facet of life, even around culture. So for me, growing up in Redfern, I'm a proud Aboriginal man. I'll throw bricks at police and all of the above. We are the proudest Aboriginal people in this country. But I couldn't tell you what my totem was. And I'll use me as the example. And that's where the disconnect is of who I am. And once you lose who you are, you just go out to the world and hope that you become somebody. And if you've got no intentions, what we spoke about many times around who that is, I want to have a house with 2 kids and I want to travel the world. You won't do it. You just accept, I'm going to work and hopefully I can, buy the house. Hopefully I find someone that's my partner. And the same principle, when you find a partner, more than likely you find somebody that connects on a level where you enjoy the similar stuff. Because if you don't, I've been in relationships like that. So I was with a great partner, taught me so much on values, morals and beliefs, but different person. They wanted to sit at home. They smoked. I didn't smoke. I was healthy. They didn't want to train. I shouldn't say unhealthy. And the choices, they do. They mean that you're not doing things together or when you're doing it for the sake of the other person. Whereas if you find someone that loves traveling the world versus someone who's scared to fly, now you've got a bit of a problem. You find someone in the same space, and that comes down to who you are. And when you define that, you'll attract that. The law of attraction will go to the world, because I put it on my social media who I am. And someone says, "Fine, I like him. I like her. She does what I do. She likes to train, keep fit, keep healthy, speaks to herself well." And that power of manifestation leads to the law of attraction. And all of a sudden, you're in each other's space. And it might come through a text to each other in the background. "Hey, want to train one day?" Something of that nature. No, maybe not even an intention. And then you're around it and want to go eat. "Oh yeah, I love traveling too." And all of a sudden, you're in the right spaces. And for Aboriginal people, we're in a space of proximity, taking you back to that conversation where the leadership got lost, and we don't have the ability to step away from who we are as individuals now. Drogo, toxic, domestic violence, crime, and so forth. And we're not all like that either. Just understand there's people in the non-Aboriginal community built exactly the same way. But if you're not built to who you truly want to be, and corporates are not built that way. I sit with them all the time. They're working their ass off in their perception for their family, and then their wife's cheating on them. And they're like, "I don't understand. They've got the Lamborghini, beautiful house. What's wrong?" Well, there's no time towards your partner. It's the greatest thing you could ever give her. And when was the last time you travelled? 5 years ago together. Well, yeah.
They wonder why it's not working.
As much as I say that about our community, as human beings, if we're not in the spaces to who we truly want to be, and you only be that when you pause, like I did for 3 months, and truly, and it was only 3 months where I obviously had other conversations in the background, but the 3 months I became very intentional. Here's who I want to be. What do you want out of a relationship? What do you want out of life? What business or what workspace do you? I didn't want to be in an office. Being fucking in the cell for 18, 20 years.
Last thing you want is office.
My office now is the world, right? And then that manifestation of that led to a 9-week holiday. And people reach out, "You ever thought about doing a YouTube around your travels? You're always traveling, Jeff." Well, I was like, bang, light bulb moment. I'm going to do that because I do it anyway. Why not drop it out to the world? And if I'm getting paid 15K, 150K, 1.5 million because of my channel and around my passion of love of traveling, well, now I've brought that together, and it's the definition of who I was and who I wanted to be. And that's where most people are lost in this world. They don't pause and truly, if I ask that to most people, they go, "Oh, I'm a concreter. I'm a whatever the label is that you got from the workspace that you're in, and a father or two. But what do you truly want to get at? I wanted to play football." Well, are you doing or taking the actions towards that space? And if not, what do you reckon the reactions are going to be? Not towards that space. You're going to accept what you regret.
And taking that pause doesn't have to be 3 months or a whole week. It could be like an hour or 20 minutes just to reflect. But we like to overcomplicate and be like, "Oh no, we have to spend so much time here. Oh, that doesn't fit into my schedule. Sorry, I'm not going to do that."
What if you did 1 minute every day? I used to say that when I was out here, it was the greatest example. I used to say, walk around the block. There was a bloke who was 187 kilos. He ended up getting down to 87 kilos. So he lost 100 kilos. When he first started, I said, "Walk around the block once a day. Text me while you're doing it." And he said, "Oh, I do more than that." Even in the conversation, I was like, "Oh, just one a day. That's all I need you to do." By third or fifth day or something, he's texting, I did 2Ks today. I didn't tell him to do that, but I created a belief that you could do it yourself. And all of a sudden, he used to then walk 2Ks, I think, to the gym, 2Ks back, 2Ks to the station, then 2Ks to the gym, back to 2Ks to the station, 2Ks back to his house. Then he started to walk to his work. I think by the end of the day, he was walking these huge Ks. And then we create a structure. You need to eat for that. If you're going to walk that distance, you need to fill your car up with petrol and the right nutrients. And this bloke, the story behind it was beautiful. He went to Tasmania. His mum and sister lived down there. Got there, and they were saying, "Oh, this bloke looks like son, you know?" And they're like, "Yeah, it does, but he's skinnier." And literally, they didn't even recognise him. And he walks out. He's like, "What are you doing?" And they all burst into tears, including him, because of the transition and change through one habit. one choice, one small micro effort that became a macro outcome, which means we discount from little things, big things grow, those small little steps that become huge outcomes within your life. This is the greatest example. You went from a garage that you bought it, your missus got you to, we're moving into this place, into a bit of a dream. And, people like Joey Williams, they're huge. He gets on national TV and shares the expertise that he has. And he's a great human being. And he's sharing knowledge to the world that can empower them to live a better quality of life around all aspects and elements of life. And the same principle for yourself. This will create a space for yourself around your passion. And I wish you nothing but the best. And I look forward to seeing 5 years from now where it takes you. And mate, I wish you and your family all the best. And I'd love to see you traveling the world for 9 weeks with your family in a space because of the passion you had to design something that you had a passion for. That started from, as he shared with the audience, just the willingness to communicate more effectively. And that then rolls out into what his relationship with his kids and his partner and the inner circle, teammates that you've spoken about. And that just allows you to become a leader and a beacon to other people to believe and achieve anything they want within their life. Priceless.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it stems from just starting.
Yeah.
As soon as you start, you build the habits, you build that momentum, 1% better each and every day. The compound interest, eighth wonder of the world, compound interest.
Yeah. And all it takes is the greatest commodity, your time. Put it in your weekly planner, like say 5 minutes, whatever, right? Do you feel that you got the time for? I guarantee people got time for stuff if they prioritize it. You dedicate that 5 minutes each day to something. Watch how you start to act on a feeling, an emotion, a happiness, a fulfillment, a contentment, a business, a life, a quality of life, a financial outcome level. And people will say to you, you're lucky, Morgs, or you're lucky, Nick. It's not luck. You created it through these little micro efforts that became huge outcomes. And my app being the greatest example, there's over 5,000 resources in that app. And I've slowed myself down because every day I just do one thing. I dedicate time to it. And it might be explaining nutrition and how the gut works and digestion and how you get the most out of it versus how to lift a weight properly, do a video around that, or conversation around how to look after your mental health, how to sleep better. All these components, stepping into your passion. Fast forward many years later, there's over 5,000 resources in that app that could elevate anybody's life. And I'm like, shit, you know what? Maybe I better slow down because people will get lost in that information. And we literally in the process of restructure where they can go through a journey, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And the first step is making sure you understand the importance of the commitment to the long game. And it's not a race. Me and you aren't racing through steps 1 to 5,000, more so working at your own pace, committed to that journey through an intentional process in your weekly planner. Anyone that wants that weekly planner, it's on my social media. There's so much more context to it, but at least it gives you some idea about what you're doing. And there's elements, happiness, success, quality of life. And you can color code that planner to allow you to say, hey, shit, I'm not doing nothing around any of these for the life I want. I've just accepted what I regret. You're going to get the 70 and go, fuck, I wish I went to the pyramids or whatever it was. The last year I've dived with sharks, jumped out of airplanes, travelled to different locations of the world I've never been to, including the pyramids I've always wanted to go to. And even on that journey, someone said, what about the Valley of the Kings when you go to Egypt? And I was like, what's that? And I said, Tutankhamun. And I was like, what? I'm out of that. So the awareness won't be there if you just don't head towards that, or if you're not intentional towards it either. You'll think it. 70 years of age will roll around. And something I learned from my mother's leukemia journey at the front of RPA Hospital, which is a hospital in Australia for those that may be overseas, I sat there with her during that 7-year period, and each time I sat there, terminal patients would come out and I'd ask them, what do you regret most in your life? What would be your advice around life? And it was always around what they never did. I wish I'd started that business. I wish I'd jumped out of the airplane. I wish I'd, whatever it was, had kids or whatever, they thought about, but they just never actioned it. And the way to cross that over is look at fear as an opportunity. So I used to get anxious going on stage. I changed the words. I'm excited to go on stage and share my knowledge to the world. So when I walk out now, I'm like, I think that you're nervous. I'm actually going and say, hey, here's an opportunity for every single person in this space who would be willing to live in the greatest version of themselves. Put your hand up. And I'm pumped to go out on that stage because I've reframed the sentence and conversation, and anybody can do that. So flip the words that you got in your space. I hope or wish it. Change them to I'm going to, I'm committed to, and watch what happens as an understanding. And if you're anxious, you're excited. Change the words. I'm excited by this opportunity. Yeah, it's scary if you tell yourself it's scary, I got an opportunity to jump out of the plane and see Earth from a different perspective, like a bird. How beautiful is it? You know, I've always wondered what an eagle would see. And all of a sudden I'm jumping over this palm in Dubai, looking down and going, man, I'm blessed. Life's good. And it's a different conversation that's happening for me and not to me.
It's all about perspective.
100%.
You bring up anxiety and being anxious. For me, I struggled with that for a long time. And I see in the studies of the correlation between anxiety and excitement. Absolutely. And as soon as you make that switch in wording, but also for me, understanding when anxiety arises for me, I used to see it as a negative thing. Now I see it as a sign of something that I need to go towards. Absolutely. As soon as you flip that perspective, anxiety is amazing. I love it.
Perception correction. So even with your invisible backpack, what's happened in your past, that was shit, right? If you say, what was the lesson it taught me? I say, whatever you call it, it was shit, what happened to me or it stressed me out. I say positive or negative word, negative. If I say, what was the lesson from it, positive or negative, and they go, positive. I said, so now, what was the lesson from that experience? And even with abuse victims, they go, when I first started, you wouldn't understand, right? But when I would get them to sit down and say, what if you could show us the red flags so someone else doesn't go through what you went through? Would you be able to share that? And I go, yeah, for sure. I don't want someone to go through what I went through. I said, so is that a positive then out of it, what you perceive as a negative? And then they go, I'm going to become an advocate for this space. Now, is that a positive or negative? It's a positive. So we can, and many people will take that and they'll go through their whole life and live in isolation. And, that's once again, someone's daughter, someone's son that doesn't get to experience life at its fullest degree determined by them and what that would be. And they've let someone else's actions create the reactions of the rest of their life to be the worst of their life, not the best of their life. And we can flip that through that perception correction.
I want to dive into fatherhood a bit. I know you 2 kids, was it?
Yeah, 3 kids. 3. And I just recently found out. And this whole conversation, the third kid came from just a casual relationship, to be straight out and honest. And same thing, I just felt like that, and I'd slept with a friend's partner, to be straight out and honest. And it was like, I was built toxic. I didn't even see it as a bad, it's like, this bloke, treated me bad stuff in my head. I justified it by doing that. And I was still in that world. I was partying, I was all of toxic stuff. And that's how I dealt with my emotions. And I'm king dingling, sleep with all these girls. In the end, I look back on it. What's the lessons I learned from it? How can I have better values, morals, and beliefs, boundaries? I don't want that in my space anymore. I don't want to be that person. So I only learned out, I think it was, what's this? Yeah, I think it was this year, for a DNA test after 7 years of court cases that child was mine. So I'm building that relationship. Plus, I struggle with the whole relationship with my kids because of missing 15 years in custody. But same thing, when I say, actually, I'll rephrase that, I'll reframe it, and this is what I talk about to everybody. I can go into the darkness of it and be upset by it, but say, what can I do to be a better father? And that's all I can do. And I can acknowledge that I wasn't a good man, a good father, a good leader to those within my space, but I own all that, and most people won't own it. So what they'll do is they'll get on drugs every weekend and try and deal with it. They'll keep sleeping with other women as a man to make me feel good for a moment. Women do it with men, or they'll drink wine, and it just doesn't fix what's in your invisible backpack. You've got to recognize it and take ownership of the ugliest version of yourself and not the proudest version of yourself. But I'll take the lessons from it and turn them into blessings, and I'll just keep showing up and trying to be a better father. And for me to do that, I'll be around people that are great fathers, and I'll take bits and pieces from them. So that's how they speak to their kids. That's how much time they dedicate to their kids. That's how they make the kids feel that they matter by doing X, Y, Z. Let's try and replicate that. And now, obviously, I've got a long way to go around that journey, but I'm committed to it. And I'll just keep showing up and trying to be the best role model I can be, and until we're able to spend more time together. And it's harder because the kids are older now. They're a lot older, two of the kids.
You have grandkids, don't you?
Yeah, grandkids as well, So even being a grandfather, no idea how to do it. Like, I should say, no, show up and give it everything you got, but you've got people that are great in that space and they're spending time with it. I always say if there's an element of your life that creates an imbalance, just like a pool, the pH level needs to be specific so it's nice, crystal clear. As soon as you say, I'm going to dedicate all my life to that, you forget about yourself and it turns toxic and grey in the pool. No one wants to swim in that pool. If you can keep the pH level where there's a nice balance of your health, your wealth, your quality of life, your family, your friends, your sporting, all these elements, you have to be intentional on that. And that means that takes some time and dedication too, and then the commitment too. And you got to be willing to take the hits of you weren't a good father, you weren't a good man, you make choices. Who are you to talk about X, Y, and Z? Well, here's what I learned from it, and here's how I'm going to grow from it. And even at its first step level, you can say, especially with social, hey, here's who I used to be. I slept with my mate's partner, and she fell pregnant. And like to me that was toxic as hell. But I saw it as a conquest back then. Oh, how good am I? And like it's just. Obviously, you look at that person, did they have values, morals? No chance. Weirdly enough, then you're loyal to not dobbing somebody in the criminal world. And how do I build myself into a better human? Surround myself to proximity of people that are great grandfathers, great fathers, great men. And to do that, you just got to accept that who you used to be and who you want to be now. And how can I learn from those experiences to be better and move towards it?
Comes down to that intentional living again.
Because I'll tell you the greatest one, A to B of life, right? I say it's my 50th this year.
Yeah.
And I say, you're invited to my birthday. It's 10 John Street down in Sydney. I make this example in every workshop. And the first thing you do, you jump in your car, start up, put your seatbelt on. Next thing you do, you turn your GPS on. Why don't we turn our GPS on to life? And what that means is people just go through life, and what happens, turn left here, turn right there. And yes, there's adventures in it, but what about the adventures of your passion and the life you truly want, and you define your A to B in your GPS to life? I'm going to turn left here and I'm going to make some money around my passion. Or no, I'm going to follow my passion, and all of a sudden money comes into your space. Now I can provide for my family, and now I feel like I've met a girl because I've intentionally put that out on my social media that's got the same sort of life intentions as myself. Now we can have some kids, or no, we're not going to have kids now. We're going to travel the world, and when we get back, we're going to have kids, and we've got the house behind us, and we've got some financials behind us. That's a different way of life, and most people won't do that. How many people do a life plan on your A to B, the intentions of what you truly want out of life? Write them out, live them every day, and just be committed to that journey and understand you're not, and you might not ever be the best in the space of being a father, being a business owner, living life. But if you're committed to the best way of your life and the passion of your life, you're living good.
Jeff, we have a closing tradition on the podcast where the previous guest leaves a question for the next guest without knowing who it is. So there's two questions here.
Yeah.
So he was a comedian. I'll tell you who it is after. So the first one was, if you could be any animal, why?
Be an eagle, because it's my totem and it represents strength and how high you can fly within your life.
And the second one is, if you could give yourself one piece of advice, your younger self, what would it be?
Listen to yourself and define your life. That, to me, I accepted life rather than define it. Define it, man, even if you're 15, write out who you want to be. If you want to play in any professional, you've got to be so intentional Why do we have to be a professional athlete to head down that path to the life we want? Why don't you be a professional to your own life and show up as hard as you do to your job for your life and watch what happens? And I'd say that would be the biggest thing, to find that life and live every single day, every single second of those 86,400 seconds towards the intentions of life you want. Watch what happens.
Jeff Morgan, thank you, man. Who would have thought? Boy from Redfern, going through what you've gone through to come out the other side. And yeah, I really appreciate you.
Anyone can do it.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming here, open mind, sharing your value and sharing your story. So, man, thank you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate your time, energy, and effort. Much love, brother.